And this is exactly why I lost all faith in Bernie Sanders in 2016. He sold out his voters in 2016. He sold them out in 2020. And someone who didn't do this was Ron Paul. He was the true anti-establishment candidate. And Bernie Sanders is coming out now calling for a ceasefire in Gaza only because Joe Biden has become so unpopular with his base.
Thank you for being here. It's great to sit down with you. We saw the Democratic primary layout in Michigan, and over 100,000 voters voted uncommitted in a protest of how President Biden has handled the war that Israel is waging in Gaza. Is that a warning sign to the White House in your view?
I think it is. I think all over this country, people are looking at what's going on in Gaza and really cannot believe what they're seeing. It's not only that 30,000 Palestinians have been killed and 70,000 wounded. 2/3 of them are women and children. But Caitlin, what we are looking at this moment is the starvation of hundreds of thousands of children. And that is because of Israeli bombardments, and that is because of the restrictions at the border preventing humanitarian aid from getting in. This is absolutely unacceptable.
And now Bernie Sanders has actually come to the conclusion that the majority of Democratic voters are actually hoping for an actual ceasefire in Gaza. But will the administration listen to him? Absolutely not. The only reason he's here is to actually be an apologist for the administration and Joe Biden, because if he actually really believes there should have been a ceasefire, he was kowtowing and not saying it for so long. And now all of a sudden, now that we have over 100,000 people saying, hey, Joe Biden, there's a real possibility we're not going to save your ass this election, they bring out Bernie Sanders, the people we're supposed to trust. And at this point, we're supposed to be like, oh, well, Bernie Sanders says we should vote for Joe Biden. He's trying really, really hard. How about you condition the aid to Israel and the weapons flow we give them instead of just gilding us with Donald Trump? And now all he has is what we had in 2016 and 2020. Donald Trump is so bad. He's supposedly this boogeyman who's going to end democracy. Is there a real threat of this? I don't even know anymore. I don't trust Bernie Sanders anymore after 2016 because he knew that his voters weren't going to go to Hillary Clinton, and yet he tried to force them to vote out of guilt. And that's all they have at this point, is just guilting their voters.
And in my view, as I've said this a million times, the United States should not be giving Netanyahu and his extreme right-wing government another nickel for their war efforts that are killing so many innocent Palestinians.
When the White House says, we're listening to these voters who have that same exact concern that you do about the aid that is going to Israel with no restrictions on it, the president has sent campaign aides to talk to Arab Americans. He's sent White House officials, including national security aides. But should he himself be having these conversations directly?
It's not whether it's him or his aides. It's what the policy is. That's what's important. And what the president has got to do, in my view, is tell Netanyahu, sorry, you're not getting another nickel of U.S. taxpayer money to murder women and children in Gaza. There has to be a major change in the Israeli policies. It has a lot to do with the two-state solution and where we go at the end of this war.
You notice how they have moved the goalposts now? Before, the United States government was always for a two-state solution. Now Joe Biden is saying we're in favor of a process to get a two-state solution. You're either in favor of a two-state solution or you're not. And at this point, Joe Biden has made it demonstrably harder to actually get a two-state solution. And all this is at this point are just words to try to appease the voters and say, hey, Joe Biden's actually going to do the right thing here. Well, he's showed no inclination to actually do the right thing. And why should we trust Joe Biden now? Because at this point, there seems to be no change in the policy. We just had 100 people just get killed trying to get food from an aid truck. But apparently that's not beyond the pale, and the administration is still making apologies for it.
If he doesn't do that, do you think those 100,000 voters won't come home in November?
Well, I don't want. Nobody can speculate it. Nobody knows. You haven't talked to 100,000 of them lately, have you? Nobody has. So, but I do think this. The contrast between Biden and Trump is pretty clear, and I think most of those
Donald Trump bad.
Committed understand that. Biden has done, by and large, a good job for working people. He understands that climate change is real. And on the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who is a pathological liar, who wants to deny every woman in America the right to control her own body, who doesn't even understand that climate change is real. So I think the choice is clear, but I think there are a lot of people.
The choice might be clear for someone who hates Trump, but the average voter just looks at this and just says, hey, Joe Biden seems to be doing a really bad job right now. His approval ratings are in the 30s. Well, Donald Trump, I hate him too, but he might do a better job. I think that's how voters are actually going to think come November. They're like, well, things are going pretty badly right now. We have all these wars going on. You know the famous saying, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to foreign policy, absolutely not. We have like the Ukraine war going on and people dying, and we also have people dying in Gaza. And the administration seems to throw its hands up when it comes to the one in Gaza and says, we can't do anything, even though we give them the weapons. We can leverage that 100% to say, hey, we're not giving you any more weapons until you actually have a Palestinian state in your plans. But they just spit in the face of Joe Biden and he just takes it.
Who are upset about the president's policies regarding the war in Israel.
You've been really outspoken in calling for a ceasefire, and you're a champion
Lie.
of on the left. I mean, everyone witnessed your runs for president. You, though, have also faced some of what President Biden has when he's out speaking publicly, which is people calling for ceasefires or calling for you to call it a genocide, something that you have not done.
Yeah, I know. That's true. But I don't know that we want to be arguing whether it's a mass slaughter or a genocide. It's kind of a technical term that the International Court of Justice is looking at. Look, the real issue is, with 30,000 dead and 70,000 wounded and hundreds of thousands of children starving to death, I would hope that every sane American wants this war ended and ended right now. And that's the role that the United States has got to play. And we have a special role because we have supported Israel for many, many years, $3.5 billion in military aid every year. And now there are those in Congress who want to give them another $10 billion to continue this war. So I think the goal right now is for us to rally around the effort to say no more military aid for Netanyahu in this terrible war.
For him to come out now and say we should have a ceasefire in Gaza, that was not always his position. But CNN's trying to tailor it to the viewer, being like, hey, this dude's always been in favor of a ceasefire. He towed the line 100% during the initial phases of this war. And when the casualties just start going up, and now we have 30,000 dead Palestinians, and all of a sudden he's like, well, maybe that's a little beyond the pale. Maybe we should actually have a ceasefire. And this showed me Bernie Sanders is just like any other politician. Finger in the wind. What's going on right now? Oh, well, we're probably going to lose to Donald Trump this November if we don't actually change policy. And I don't think they're actually going to change policy. They're just going to tell their voters, hey, Donald Trump's bad, and that's the only thing we could really say, even though we lied about a public option, we lied about raising the minimum wage. So, just Donald Trump bad. That's their only argument at this point. Good night and good luck.